Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spring Into Action. This is a special bonus episode. Every time I get to speak to this guy, I jump at the opportunity. I love the way that he runs his business. I love the way that he thinks. I love the way that he approaches the world of real estate. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Chris Henry. Chris Henry, welcome to Spring Into Action, the bonus episode. How are you?
Jonathan, it's a pleasure to catch up with you. As always, I'm amazing.
You are amazing. I think you're amazing. That's why I got you on the show. I don't think I've
Thank you,
ever had
friend.
anyone say that they're amazing before in their own intro, but I'm going to take it today. How are you?
Yeah, look, it's been a very changing, it's been a very challenging, it's been an interesting market to work in, straight off the back of a completely changed world. It's still a period of adjustment, and I think the biggest opportunities we can take out of this is how we reframe our thinking around the entire business world and how we engage.
Yeah, I think it really has been an interesting time of change. And one of the reasons why I find speaking to you so fascinating is because of the region that you're from. You're up there in Maitland in the Hunter. You've got everything from waterfronts at Port Stephens to acreage lifestyle to affordable first home living. You really are the patch quilt of real estate where you are. Like you actually have to be and have expertise in all areas and think about all the different scenarios. And so that's why I always find speaking to you fascinating because you've got real on the ground experience with all these scenarios. Where is the market at the moment? Do you think? Have we seen the back of COVID, or is it still affecting things?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question because it comes back to, I guess, what you're experiencing on a day to day basis. You know, the people that we work with, the properties that we represent, um, and the challenges that we face on a day to day basis. I guess we work alongside people who are navigating their way through life. You know, whether they're in a buoyant period of their life, whether they're in a period of struggle, whether they're in a period of change. You know, and as you mentioned, the diversity of the type of property we represent is vast. But I always talk to our team about we're not actually listing the property; we're actually engaging with people. So the diversity of people that we represent is very vast and it's very broad, and it is a chameleon approach of assessing the situation, the people that you represent, making sure that we engage in a way that helps them feel supported and understood. And, you know, because you could be working with so many different sectors or segments of the public, you know, you really have to be adverse to understanding exactly what the situation is. You've got to become really quick at making some decisions to help support and guide your clients in the right direction. So there's never a dull moment in real estate, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think one of the other challenges that people are talking about in real estate space is staff.
Yep.
Yes, staff in the metro areas seems to be a challenge, particularly around property management, um, retention of staff, experience of staff. Um, is that something that's amplified where you are, where obviously the population base isn't as dense, so you know it might be harder? Like, what are you experiencing there with staff?
Yeah, growing your team is a different challenge and opportunity as well. Um, there is a good blend of people on offer that are always consistently looking into the real estate industry, but it doesn't suit everybody. So I guess it's really working with team members to help grow them, to help build them as young leaders in quite a diverse and challenging space. The property management industry has been particularly challenged over the last couple of years. I think it's been quite a stressful role for property managers to work in, and they need more support now than ever. And I think, leaders of our industry are really working hard to try and carve out different pathways to not only to help support our staff, but create an attraction career for them. Because I think, real estate agents and property managers have been fighting against this theory that, it's not a great job. Well, in fact, the opportunities that are available to people that work in that space are really exciting. And I think it just needs to be framed differently for people to appreciate what the role actually offers.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that in real estate that it's pretty obvious that sales takes the big flag. Like sales are they're the ones that are swinging around, and it was the same in the media as well. Sales were the guys and the girls that were swanning around and swooshing around. But I think if we go back to the last 2 or 3 years, I can't count on all my hands and all my toes, all my hands and all my feet, just how many businesses were saved by the rent roll. The
Yep.
property managers actually saved the business, kept it afloat, kept everyone in a job. And I think that that needs to be recognised a bit more. I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. The role of a property manager and a good property manager is very systematic. They're very good at creating and maintaining very long term relationships. The sales relationship is much shorter by nature. The transaction volume or fee on offer is higher in the sales side of the business. But when you're looking at long term recurring revenue streams, the role of the property manager actually builds more value into a long term sustainable business. They've got a longer term relationship with our clients and customers. Their responsibilities for looking after, maintaining, and value adding that particular home over a long period of time is more important. And they're generally working with a client that can have a multitude of one investment all the way up to, one of our investors, sitting on around 35 properties. That's quite a strategic role to be in charge of and guiding an owner through that size portfolio. So I think the role of a property manager is really important, and it can't be celebrated enough when you've got a property manager who's absolutely dedicated to the career of real estate and someone who's not in it for 5 minutes who sees themselves as a career property manager.
Yeah, and I think it's horses for courses. Not everyone's built for sales. It's not everyone's game. Um, sometimes people get into real estate for sales and then find their
Mm.
home in property management. And I think flexibility and actually working in the job that you want to be in rather than the job you think other people want you to be in. I think that's something that we've experienced more recently. There's been an awakening of, hey, don't stay in jobs that you're no longer enjoying. Find the one that you enjoy, live your own life, and get on with it. And I think we've seen a bit of an explosion with that. But you've got to feel a little bit for the property managers with just all these rule changes, particularly down here in Victoria. We've had so many rule changes around tenants' rights and compliance and all these different things that have swept in that have just, on top of everything that they went through for the 2 years of COVID, they've been swamped with all these extra changes and just keeping the the landlords or the customer and then the client. I suppose that's the best way to do it. To keep them all informed and happy and on the same page would have been an around the clock job, I think.
Yeah, it takes a fully dedicated individual to maintain, momentum in a marketplace that's changing like that. We spend more time than ever on mindset. The amount of support we look at for um, health and well-being and making sure that the mindset is right for our property managers and our staff, because if you're in this evolving, changing, dynamic space, it really comes down to how you think about your daily activities and how you think about your daily responsibilities. And so, what we've found and discovered over that time is the more work we've done in mindset and support coaching, the better quality experience our property managers are having, because they see these challenges as something that they're excited about rather than something that they're fearful of. And I
Oh,
saw a quote that changed my mindset not so long ago with, I think it was a speaker down at Leadership, actually, that you were a part of that. And they were discussing being happy in the pursuit, not in the pursuit of happiness.
mhm.
Because I think there's a completely different shift in that. You've got to find those happy moments in the pursuit of a challenge versus hating the challenge, trying to get to this place of happiness.
Yeah.
And I think that really embedded a lot into the way I think about growing the business, supporting team members, serving clients. It's a very dynamic and ever evolving space, but I'm excited about the future of real estate, where it's heading. I'm excited about the industry as a whole. I'm excited about what services we can provide and we can offer to our community. And I think that social media has such a positive influence on where we can spread the message and how we can get the message out about how good the industry is, the importance of looking after our consumer in the right way, and how we can actually better support our communities with the role that we play.
I think you know that this is one of my bugbears, right? Is that I just demand that real estate agents within their industry defend their patch, like set the
Yeah.
narrative. You've now got the tools in your hands to control the narrative outside mainstream media, and it actually has an influence now because the attention the attention spans of the world has changed away from these traditional forms into what you can control in your own pocket. Now, you might not think it's having an impact, but I can tell you, I promise you, it does. And I think you're someone, and that's why this is why you're on the show live from your car. Is we've got you on the show because you are someone who's taken the reins and you know been really upfront and honest with the market about where real estate is. You're not just blowing up tires for the sake of blowing up tires. You're actually saying, well, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and this is where we're at, so that people have a more informed decision. Is that something you've consciously done, or is that just something that's in your DNA to be like that?
Well, I think a bit of both. I've really enjoyed the career of real estate. I came out of construction, supporting my family, and to make the transition from construction into the real estate was a big challenge. It was a completely different industry. Although I had product knowledge, it was a completely different space than what I'd been used to. So, of course, I had a big dream for what I wanted to create, and it all started with self education and getting to learn about yourself. So I've spent years and years and years trying to understand who I am and how I tick and how I can serve better, be better, and what I can do to actually self improve. So I guess that awareness and recognition of how I see the world and how I address certain situations. I've always felt that the vulnerability side and opening up and sharing what I'm experiencing from a truthful space has always served me a lot better.
Yeah, it keeps you out of a lot of trouble, that's for sure. Um, you see people who try things for a little bit and start to get found out. I mean, you just see it everywhere, not just in real estate, across the world now. Social media has ex- put a spotlight on a lot of people, and there's only a certain amount of time that you can fake it until you get caught out, and so the best
Mm.
thing to do is just be you, and you can do that forever. That's the best thing. Let's get back to your construction days. You say construction. Any particular focus? I know the answer to this question. I don't often ask questions I don't know the answer to. Um, Tell us about your background in construction.
Yeah, look, I came out of school. I was doing a business diploma. Always had an interest in business, which was embedded from my stepfather, and and I started working part time for my brother-in-law as a commercial domestic plasterer. You know, everything I turned my hand to back in the early days, I seemed to enjoy, and I really enjoyed the creative side of it. So we're doing a lot of shop fit out, commercial, shopping centres, large construction sites. Um, you know, and I really enjoyed that. And fast forward a couple of years, I went out on my own in that space, and always wanted a business of my own, and had some fairly rapid growth in the construction space. And as I was scaling that business and really enjoying my time in residential and commercial plastering and shop fitting, that's when a change in our family life took place. And I was required to step in and help out the family. So I transitioned into real estate to give mum a hand. And the career started to evolve from there. So it was a fast learning curve, but I had a lot of great support, and you know it's been a 20-year career so far, but you know it just still seems like it's been a blink of an eye.
What a great way to to live your life. If you think it's only started yesterday, then you're not getting tired of it.
I feel like I've only just scratched the surface, and I'm 20 years in.
But I think you're missing your calling, though. I think really you'd be an asset on a show like The Block, like because you could sell the house and do the gyp rocking at the same time, right? When they find someone like that's the golden nugget. Like you could be and you're a little bit handsome. Let's be honest. So you could be up there, shirt off, putting the gyp rock up. Like the ratings could go one way or the other. But I'm banking on the fact they could go up a little bit. Um, if you got on there to do this,
It might give the public something to laugh at.
tell us about and this is the funny thing about shows like The Block. And I don't know if you watch it. Do you watch it, the show?
Yeah, I've watched seasons. I haven't watched every season, but I enjoy the creative aspect of it. I think the
Mm.
the theory behind it is very relevant. I think it shows construction methods. It shows latest products and trends. It certainly brings a spotlight to creativity. I suppose this is TV, but I don't enjoy the backstabbing drama that you see on those sorts of shows. That's something that probably turns me off.
Yeah,
But I do like the transformation side of it. You know, I've been a renovator um, from the day I bought my first house. You know,
yeah,
I think we had about 8 moves in about 11 years because we'd buy a home, renovate it, sell it, buy a home, renovate it, sell it, and you know, and that story just went on. So I really enjoy that transformation as part of the process, and it's something I probably focused a lot of attention on helping clients do throughout my real estate career as well.
yeah. I think you make a really good point. Um, People love real estate. Like there's so many real estate shows. Particularly if you start scanning through the American networks and the American satellite networks, there are whole channels dedicated to flipping homes, selling homes, buying homes. Like humans are obsessed with real estate, like they're obsessed with cars. Like they're just these big ticket items, and I think you hit the nail on the head. And I think the producers of The Block this season are copping a massive backlash with the fact that there's just been so much backstabbing drama between two or three of the groups on the show this year, and really have lost focus on the actual transformation of the homes. Like I know that the homes auctioned on Sunday, but I haven't watched that episode yet, or maybe they're auctioning tonight. I don't know, but I think it's coming to a close this week. We're a few behind, but I couldn't honestly tell you the layout of the houses in this season. Where any other season prior to that, I'd have an idea in my head of what house looked like what, and the particular features of each team's home. They're focused so much of in the street drama, um, that I think missed the boat here. They've forgotten the fact that humans actually do just love real estate. So just go along with an ordinary everyday real estate show and you'll be okay in terms of
Mm.
ratings. So it's really interesting that, yeah, and this I think is the same with real estate agents is and the mainstream media is the mainstream media keeps trying to inject drama into real estate. Who's the
Mm.
bad underquoter? Who's this? Who's that? And real estate agents really just need to get back to overwhelming the mainstream media, which is telling the story of the day to day real estate agent. It might
Mm.
seem boring, it might seem like there's not enough going on, but we know for decades and decades and decades that humans are obsessed with this stuff.
Yeah, I think the property itself is kind of like a sport in Australia. You know,
Mm.
there's that much interest into it. It underpins most of Australians, primary wealth. Not only that, it's about you know lifestyle and creativity and those sorts of things. I think are deeply important to humans. We love to evolve. We love to create, and watching what people do with ideas and designs and fixtures and finishes. It's a real representation of, I guess, who we are, and those creative spaces. I absolutely thrive on it. You know, I love walking in and meeting a new client and seeing how they live and how they think and the ideas that they come up with. It's such a evolving learning space. And these sort of shows, I've been fortunate enough to travel through the US looking at real estate and travel through the UK looking at real estate. And each country kind of has a different relationship with real estate. And Australia is I would say one of the most professional represented real estate spaces that I've traveled and seen. The quality of training in this country, the quality of operators that run businesses in this country. You only ever hear of the bad news stories, but throughout my entire career, I have continued to meet some of the most inspirational and creative business leaders that run real estate businesses. You know, they've got a huge heart for their clients, they've got a huge heart for their people. The amount of investment they put into growing others and opening up the opportunities for their clients and their team members, it's just phenomenal. And when you look at the amount of personal development, education that goes into this space, and you're experiencing it, Jonathan, you're a part of that learning center for real estate agents on how to represent the product and their customers better and how do we connect better. You know, that there's a huge investment into growing this industry that continues to excite me on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. You said you've been around the world and seen changes. I see changes in Australia.
Mm.
Like you go to South Australia or Adelaide, for example, rarely do they auction a home.
Mm.
Melbourne, always put your house into an auction because then at least you know what it's worth because you've put it out and then you're open. But I know that real estate agents will have different opinions of that. But it's just the thinking that people have. And then, I think I read yesterday there was a house in Sydney that sold for 1.3 million above its reserve. And as soon as I read that headline, I was like, okay, guess what we're going to see the next day? Underquoting rife in real estate agents. Well, maybe not. Maybe there was
No,
just five or six
when I
people
see that,
just really wanted it
um, when I,
and drove.
when I see those sort of headlines, it just shows you how wrong we can get it, because the market is always moving. It's always changing. The market's opinion on price versus what the data's opinion on price, or what the evidence suggests, can be completely different. I've had scenarios where you know I've thought that a property was worth X and it ends up selling way beyond that. I've also had scenarios where I felt a property was worth X, but it ends up selling way less than that. It just you don't know it all, but the pricing of property is one of the most difficult things, because it comes back to real estate agents' role is not to price the property, it is to run a process in order to uncover the price of that property.
Mm, yeah.
And I think sometimes where things go wrong is agents promise a price or they promise an outcome, but it's something that you can't guarantee. The only thing you can control is the process that you run, and that process itself has to have milestones that need to be hit in order to deliver an outcome. Um, and that outcome sometimes is well beyond what the expectations were through an auction process. And congratulations for those people that achieve that. But the outcome can also be that the best decision for an owner is to actually stay and not sell their property because the conditions aren't right in order to release that asset and move on.
Mm,
So agents are working in that space, guiding their customers. A lot of the times I meet with an owner and I run through the numbers, we appraise the property, and then I'll quite happily sit there with them and say, look, it's I can't see it being your best decision to actually sell. Why don't we hold this asset and work on a few other strategies in order to help you achieve your goals? So it's not about always just selling the house and moving on.
yeah, right. It is fascinating though, and I think this is part of the romance of real estate is you just don't know what's going to happen, particularly uh, if you go through auctions. I find auctions fascinating, the psychology of auctions, the different tricks and tactics that people use. Um, in my
Mm.
street, for example, just recently, there were two homes that were almost back to back on a hill. So you had one that was at the top of the hill, slightly bigger block, nicely presented, typical 1950s three-bedroom house with stone bench tops, like lovely floorboards, well presented. And then down below in the dip was this sort of more trashed, run down, smaller block, and in a southern dip of so a darker block. So I literally looked at the two houses and went, well, this one's going to win versus this one. And the auctions were only an hour apart on the same day. So I was like, right. And I took my oldest daughter down because I'm starting to introduce them to the process of auctions and how it works. And just for an interest thing, I don't think they want to
Mm.
work in real estate, but I think it's, as a kid, it was something I used to get taken along to. And I think it's fascinating to watch how it works and understand it. I could have bet my car that this one up the top of the hill was going to sell, and it was in the second auction, and the one down the bottom was the first. So I was like, let's see where that price goes. This one went for almost $80,000 more than this one passed in for, and I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't explain it. Other than the market is the market, and that's the stories that come out of real estate is you just don't know who's around. And then the one that sold down the bottom of the hill, the finance didn't come through and it's back on the market. So you know it's a tricky world sometimes. So I think that's fascinating in some of the stories. um, where do you think it's going to go in the next 5 to 10 years? Obviously technology's coming to play a big part in Spring Into Action. We did a great episode with Samantha McLean, who's writing to AI and finding all the prompts for Chat GPT and all those sorts of things. Where do you think it's going to land? I know people get excited about this stuff, but is it, are we going to replace agents with avatars and not have to deal with people anymore? Is that how it's going to go?
Look, I think technology will have a huge influence in the way that real estate is transacted. There's no doubt. The way that people find real estate, the way that people explore new opportunities, the way that people engage, negotiate, purchase, all of those things will continue to evolve. I mean, you can buy most things online these days from a retail experience. Real estate has probably lagged in that aspect. It's not as if you can go to a website, click add to cart, and then walk away with the property. Um, I think technology will have a huge influence in supporting that process over the many years. Who knows? We may get to an add to cart um, um, part of real estate, but it is such a moving, changing, evolving space that the human connection is the most important ingredient. And
Yeah.
sometimes we get that right and sometimes we get it really wrong. The right part about it, and I heard Steve Carroll, who was an amazing thought leader in real estate, say there's a difference between a doctor and a nurse. The doctor is diagnosing the problem and providing that leadership and guidance, but the nurse is providing that human connection. And I think that real estate is such a nursing role. A lot of the time I sit there and just listen to one of my clients explaining where they're at in life, and they're thinking about selling their house and evolving it. There's so many personal things wrapped up in the sale of that property. But it's having the ability to share those moments and guide them in the right way after you've carefully listened to their direction. That's really hard for technology to replace that. I think we need the technology in order to facilitate the transaction part of it, but the human connection will always remain the human connection. And it's probably one of the most enjoyable parts and challenging parts of my role is blending the human connection to the technology to actually facilitate a movement or a transaction.
Yeah. I think what's fascinating is that I think technology is going to change the way people buy houses, but as you said, the connection between the agent and the human, the customer, is going to remain important, very important. But prior to COVID, uh, you'd never have thought that people would just buy a home off a video to or a shot off a phone,
Mm.
and we see that now.
Mm.
We see people the agent gives a walkthrough of the house, and people go, "Yep, I'll take it."
Mm.
We never thought that you'd be able to sell cars at a shopping center, but Tesla opened up retail stores in shopping centers. And you go to a shopping center
Yeah.
and you say, "I'll buy that car." You actually don't see your actual car until it arrives. Where back in the
Mm.
day, you'd want to drive it. And I remember my dad would go to a car yard and he'd drive three of the same cars just to get which one felt tighter. He used to say, "Oh, this one's tighter,
Mm.
like it's been put together better." We don't get that anymore. I'm just waiting for the first real estate agency to open a retail store in a shopping center where you can tour all their homes with VR.
Mm.
Put the goggles on, walk through the house. It has to be around the corner, surely.
And look, it could very well work that way. Pre-COVID, like you just mentioned, we didn't have a lot of purchasers that would be able to buy a home um, just straight off a video. But I think how the space has evolved and why people feel that they can do that is now there's a lot more trust in the space. When you pan around a property with an iPhone and you're providing an owner with all of the upfront information like pest and building reports, strata reports, you're doing a walkthrough tour off an iPhone, it's a real experience, and it's very much a transparent process. So I know that when I'm doing a tour with someone through an iPhone who may be living in a different part of the country, I'm walking around showing them the property with the iPhone, and we're having a lot of conversation while that's happening. But with an open for inspection, sometimes I'll have a customer walk through the door, say hello, and not engage at all.
Yeah.
So they'll walk around the property not asking any questions, not engaging at all, and then walk out the door. Whereas someone that you're doing a walkthrough iPhone inspection, I'm basically holding them in my hand as I'm touring them around the property, and we're having very open dialogue around the home.
Mm.
So there's a lot better connection built. There's a lot more trust in the process. They're generally saying, "Oh, can you pan back? Can you zoom in on that? Can you show me this? Can you show me that? Is there any potential problems with the house? What would you recommend? How do I fix that?" So you're having a very transparent conversation. And I've really enjoyed the process of walking people through on an iPhone that aren't local to our area, sending them the information they need. And I think the reason why we're seeing purchasing taking place without the human being present is the fact that the trust is there. And I think the reason why real estate never got to a add to cart scenario in the beginning was there was no trust in the transaction. You actually had to turn up on site and have a good look at the property before you trust what you're being told.
Mm.
Um, there was no guarantees behind it. But as we're starting to evolve the space and bring the transparency to it, there's a lot more trust in the purchase. So the consumer doesn't feel like I need to actually come and see it on the ground to verify what the agents have told me. And the more we can get to real photography, the more we can get to real information that describes the property in its truest form, the transaction will start to increase without the person feeling that they need to verify everything.
Mm.
Um,
I
the
think it's
layers of
also
verification are probably the biggest blockage
mm.
to it becoming more of a retail experience.
I think there's also an evolution of the customer themselves being able to develop emotions over digital assets. So being
Yep.
able to watch videos and actually make that emotional connection. The humans are viewing content so much now that they're able to transport themselves to the place and go, okay, what would it
Mm,
feel like to live here? They're now learning to be able to do that via video
mm,
rather than, hey, I have to stand in the house. I want to see the street. There are still some people that way.
mm,
But I think just our acceptance of technology into our world is then opening up the world to doing this stuff. But I still think, the phone calls, the conversations, the insights into what you stand for as an agent and a brand is still really important to win that trust and to gain people. But you did mention something about open homes, which I want to touch on because this is something I'm guilty of this, Chris, and I apologize to all the real estate agents that I've done this to. But sometimes, I don't know what it is, but you've, and I didn't plan to talk about this at all, but you've raised it. There is a behavior in humans, and I probably did this more when I was looking to purchase properties than just being a sticky beak. Um, that when you go in there, you sort of feel as though you're competing against the agent. Like you're looking at you walk into an open home. I don't want to let the agent. I don't want to give him all my details, all my cards. I don't want to let him know exactly what my price I'm prepared to pay. So I'm just going to walk around. Oh, I'm all right, mate. I'm okay, thanks. No, don't need any help. No questions. Yeah, I'll take that piece of paper. Here's my phone number. And then I disappear and just tour the house myself without anyone sort of influencing that experience. What is that? Why do humans do that? And are they doing it more or less at the moment? And do you know
mm.
what I'm talking about to start with? Like
I know
just a
exactly
one
what you're
off, or
talking about. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. After, running thousands of open for inspections and experiencing the engagement versus lack of engagement, I can almost feel it as they walk through the door, whether they're wanting engagement or not.
mm,
It's you get to read the body language pretty well. I can tell if someone is interested in a home just purely on body language. They don't need to even engage with me in terms of a conversation. I can sense it, and I think we're just complicated humans. Even walking into a retail store, you see the shopkeeper standing behind the till, and I just can't engage with them as soon as they, and even when they say, "Can I help you?" it's always the natural response is no. So it's no different in an open for inspection. So I guess how we warm people up to that scenario, and what I've found is through social media. Like if a consumer is consuming some of your content pre them turning up to an open, I've seen it's more of a already know you experience.
all right.
So I've noticed the change that social has had on that. People obviously they walk up and they introduce themselves. They know you. They've been consuming your content. That's been a real shift
Have you got
in
something to talk to you about? Hey, I
breaking.
watched your
Yeah,
video, or I saw you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's an icebreaker scenario there, but I guess it comes down to each individual how they like to engage in that process. A lot of people are naturally more trusting than others, so you just got to work with what you're presented with. And it is a very, I love open for inspections. I really do, because you get to meet so many different people. You get to represent a property that you're working for on behalf of your owner. And I'm always excited to find who is the right connection for this particular home
Yeah.
and work out the reasons why. You know, sometimes it surprises me, other times it's a more natural fit. So yeah, the space is always changing, and I guess that's the exciting part of it.
So for those out there that are like me and are a little bit sheepish or a bit snobbish, or I don't know, have the blinkers on when we go to an open home, we're like, I'll stay away, agent. Can we just put it to bed right now that it's okay to talk to the agent in an open home? It's not going to affect. It's not going to make you pay more, or it's not going to be able to
No,
put any voodoo tricks on you. That they're actually there to help. Like, can we just put this to bed so that I can finally be myself when I go into open homes? Like, just turn into this "don't come near me" type of, like you said at retail, right? If I'm in and I'm just having a look, hey, can I help you? Yeah, the Apple Store's a classic. You go in there, you get, if you're there for 10 minutes, you get 10 people asking you if you're okay, and it's like, no, I'm just looking. Like, I've already told that person, that person, that person, that. It's the same with agents, right? We can talk to the agents. It's okay.
yep, absolutely. You can talk to the agents. I mean, the ones that are more engaging, you're going to see it from their body language that actually they're here to help. Versus, I have experienced a few times myself walking through open for inspections when I've been looking that the agent's got their head buried in their iPhone and they're not
Yeah,
interested in actually engaging with you. So I guess it's a personal experience, you know. So I think it's it's that human connection. If that's
yeah,
what you're there to try and to work out. Obviously, everyone that comes through an open for inspection is wanting to know something, right?
yeah,
They're either wanting to know, is this the right property for me, or they're
yeah,
wanting to know, how does this compare to my property because I live
yeah,
in the street, or they're trying to experience what a home's like in this area. They're all there to learn something.
yeah,
So as the Facebook comment always says, what's on your mind? It's a great question to ask
yeah,
people when they come through and open for
yeah,
inspection.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the real estate agent hover in an open for inspection, because you get those agents that hover around you. You move from, hey, I'm not here to steal anything. It's okay. I'm all right. Like, what are the rules of the hover? Is there training? Are there guys that train how much to
Yeah.
hover and not to hover? Can you give us some inside secrets here about the
Yeah,
hovering?
yeah, there is definitely training on how to conduct an open for inspection and how to
Hover.
give people some personal space versus the hover. Yeah, it's very very interesting. I suppose there's a balance between being helpful and just being overbearing,
Yeah,
and everyone likes to engage in a different way.
yeah,
But an open for inspection is really just about a window shop.
yeah,
If that's a property that you feel that you want to learn more about, then I would definitely recommend booking a private inspection back on that home. The open for inspection is really just a quick speed date, if you like, on
yeah,
that particular property.
yeah,
It's not an environment to negotiate. It's not an environment to try and buy the house in that
yeah,
moment. It's just a opportunity for you to have an experience of that property with a view to then
yeah.
booking a private inspection.
And the flip side to that is not an opportunity to sell hard from an agent's point of
No,
view or try and close it.
no.
But I think what you mentioned before, and tell me whether you think that this is probably one of the areas where most agents could do more work and improve a greater level of what they're doing, get greater leverage out of it, is you said human behavior before, reading body language and that sort of stuff. Is this the secret that agents should be focused on and working on, is when they're doing open for inspections, when they're interacting with humans, that they read the room, pardon the pun, but read whether that person wants to engage, whether they're looking away from you, turning their back to you, turning away, you know, walking faster than what they were before. All these different things that can happen. And the agents need to just get better at reading that body language.
Look, it's very helpful. the study of human dynamics, personalities, all of those sorts of things have a huge bearing on your career. If you're in the people space, which real estate agents are, then I would highly recommend them investing in as many courses and as many seminars, podcasts, however you like to consume self improvement information. It just gives you better tools to recognize certain behaviors and work on strategies to engage a little better.
Yeah,
It's got nothing to do with tricks or manipulation. It's got everything to do with understanding.
yeah,
And so when my team and I are at an open for inspection, we're there just to not sell the property. We are there to understand what the consumers are engaging with,
yeah.
and then point them in the right direction, which hopefully at some point will lead on to a transaction, or that person finding the property that they're actually wanting to purchase. We all hope that everyone who comes through that open for inspection wants to buy this particular house, but the reality of it is, no, they won't. And it's an opportunity just to meet with them where they're at and hopefully guide them in the right direction from there.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I find all the human behavioral stuff fascinating. And I think you're right. Real estate is such a 360-degree business that any amount of seminars and learning and that whole motto of never stop learning really does benefit an industry like this one. Um, I feel so fortunate to now be working in it more regularly and and learning. Even I'm learning more about real estate every day. Your insights today on the hover, I'm going to take with me forever. I'm a changed man for opening for inspections. To the real estate agents in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne are going to see a different Jonathan Creek walking through their open for inspections. Thanks to you, Chris Henry. It's been awesome to have you on the show today. Any final words of wisdom to give to the market or the good people that watch spring into action?
Look, I think we've got an exciting real estate space in Australia. I think that any challenges that we do face are equally weighted towards the opportunities that are out there as well. It's all about how you think and how you act. And, I think there's some amazing career opportunities in the real estate space for anyone out there that is considering real estate as a career. We'd love to hear from you, certainly if you're in the Hunter Valley, because we'd love to share the knowledge.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a beautiful place up there, so you never know. You might want to move there, and Chris might have a job for you. Maybe. Now, one final question before we go, and this is something that's seemingly just popping up on my radar in the last couple of weeks. January. January traditionally has been a pretty quiet month for real estate agents. They slide into Christmas. They get all those houses on their lists for sale, sold. They get their commission, and then they go through, take January off, and then they get to February and they got nothing, and then they do their kickstarts and they get going, and then they're not getting paid till March or Easter, right? And this is the real estate cycle. But I'm starting to hear that the last two Januaries in particular have been very, very busy. And it just happens to coincide when there is the most amount of traffic online as well, because people are sitting at home. The decision makers are both home together or having a holiday together, and they're scrolling real estate sites, they're scrolling social media. Where's your stance on January, and is it becoming a new mini spring?
Yeah, look, I think it's an interesting theory, and I think the industry as a whole was not balanced in how to train real estate agents on to take regular breaks. So over the years, what traditional high performance real estate agents would do is they would literally work all year without a break and only take time off at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So it created this gap in the industry. But as we're starting to learn that that's not a healthy way to engage any sort of career, the regular breaks throughout the year, and the reality is the market's busy all year.
Mm.
There's people moving for all various reasons. But I think that's starting to shift. There is a huge amount of people that are looking on realestate.com domain and the major portals over the Christmas period because they've finally got a bit of downtime themselves to consider their future and what they're doing in the preceding year. So the traffic definitely increases every year around Christmas. I think agents that make themselves available will certainly be busy. But again, it's just making that choice of whether you're working or whether you're not working. You know, I was one of those early adopters of not taking regular breaks in the early part of my career. You know, it was almost celebrated, um, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, how many hours you'd put in. But as we started to see the long-term effects of that, it's not celebrated anymore. It's really about having a sustained career and taking regular breaks, and we're not seeing this big gap as much around January. It's more of a holiday time of the year for Australians, and there's a lot of people away and travelling throughout that time of the year. But I think with technology, with video walkthroughs, with the ability to connect online, and as you mentioned earlier, humans becoming more comfortable with doing business online through video, I think we're starting to see a bit of a shift around that January, February marketplace, and we won't see the lumpiness in the real estate transaction.
Yeah, I think that's a true. I think that's a true representation of what I'm sensing too. But I think it really is important. You touched on here. If you're going to have a break, have a real break. Don't don't go half and half because you won't get the decompression that you need.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so there you go, folks. Chris Henry, a pleasure as always. What a great episode. The bonus episode. I think you were one of the originals on. I think you were the actual first original episode of Spring Into Action. And so I had to bring you back for the bonus episode. And it's been great. Time flies. It's 50 minutes we've been talking. So incredible.
Always a pleasure, Jonathan. I love catching up with you. You've had such a big influence on my team and myself personally, and I appreciate you. So thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Hope to see you soon.